Ladies and gentlemen, I am Vandal Drummond, back from vacation with Alfredo Esparza. How you doing, Fredo?
Doing good.
That's good. It's been a long time since we've done a show.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So after this lengthy reprieve, what has each other been up to?
Well, you've been having fun.
I've been on vacation.
Yeah, you've had a great time.
I went to Oahu, where the very first day on the island, we're at a little outdoor shopping mall, and I walk into a Japanimation shop, and one of the first things I see is a T-shirt from a group called Hawaii Nostalgia, and on the back, it's a tribute to 50th State Wrestling, Ed Francis's old promotion in Hawaii, and it's a picture of the Civic Auditorium and illustration of the crowd all gathering for a Wednesday night wrestling show. You know, just one of those things you're not even looking for and you find, and I could tell the trip was off to a good start, and I just had a really bitchin' time. Elena and I both got really sunburned, but we have no regrets. We had a bitchin' time doing it, swam with the sea turtle, drove around all these cool little art communities on the island of Kona, and half of me is here in Southern California, half of me is still back in Kona.
Half of me is in New York.
That's right. You have a very fascinating story about Alfredo Esparza in New York, even though you physically have never been there.
Yeah, I've never been there, but there's somebody over there that's using my name.
That's right, and
that's about all.
Oh my God!
No further comment on that.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, all we'll say is that there is an Alfredo Esparza imposter out there, and the cowardly son of a bitch should show his face.
Yeah, he's gonna be seeing the police department pretty soon. Exactly.
And I think on top of that, if they get a hold of him, I think you should take out a civil suit, and since you're Alfredo Esparza, he has to change his name to, A.F. Esparza. Yay, if D.R. Luch can do it, and if L.A. Park can do it, you know.
Well, he just has to give me, he already got back my money, so I'm not worried about that.
So, pretty much all's well that ends well, but,
yeah, it was a bad 2 weeks that ended, that's kind of calmed down now, so. No big.
What a lousy son of a bitch that guy is. Well.
Yeah, I know. I see everybody else is having a great time. I see Brian Alvarez getting married.
Yeah, there's a lot of good news going around here. Brian Alvarez has gotten married. I'm going to a bitchin' surf guitar convention on Saturday.
D.R. Luch is going to Las Vegas, I think.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah, he's going to that Masked Warriors show or whatever.
Oh, Lord, I thought you said that was good. There was good news this Saturday.
Oh, so I guess he and I are the only ones with bad news.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, I should try to talk you both into going to the Surf Guitar 101 convention in Los Alamitos. They're having surf guitar bands from everywhere. The Space Rangers from Germany, the Wadadli Riders from Antigua.
Wow.
Surfside 4 from Arizona, the Atomic Mosquitoes, the Insect Surfers, who actually once played a incredibly strange wrestling show years ago.
They might remember you.
The only reason I really remember them is because I saw their name on the flyer, and it's such a unique name. Though they did contribute to the surf guitar tribute to the musical Hair.
Oh, cool.
Where, if you knew me, finding a surf guitar tribute to the musical Hair is like the most amazing find, because I am a huge fan of the surf guitar, and I am an even huger fan of the 1960s Broadway musical Hair.
Well,
I'm one of those guys, not a big fan of musicals unless it's Hair, the Rocky Horror Picture Show, or Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yeah, we got a caller already, Kurt.
Who do we have?
I'm here to say Fredo.
Oh, it's the Dan Farren run-in.
Dan's going to find this guy who stole my identity and beat him up.
That's right. He's Street Fighter Dan Farren, who's going to slap a Canoga clutch on the no-good who betrayed Fredo Esparza.
Were you had your identity stolen, Fredo?
Yeah.
Why?
It happened like a week before. It happened a week before the show. So
what did they do?
Well, somebody walked into a bank and forged my signature.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So they stole a rather large sum of money out of my account.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
You can actually still do. Wow. I wonder maybe if it was. Did they use like a check or something, or did they just do a?
I didn't even know they still did that. I was like, well, how the hell did they do that?
Well, because actually, I've been reading that because the people that that work on bank fraud and stuff like that, they're so careful about debits and transfers and all that stuff that they haven't been as quite on top of it for checks as they used to be. So a lot of people that are doing it with checks now.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what it is. I mean, but I've probably only done like 4 checks in the last year. So. Yeah,
I know exactly. Well, see, the sad thing for me is if somebody stole my identity, their credit rating goes down 12 points immediately. So why would they want to do
criminal?
Yeah, exactly. If anything, they'd be begging me to take their identity when it was over with.
I don't want to be Dan Farren anymore.
I don't want to be Dan Farren anymore. I tell
you, Mr. Wizard, I don't want to be Dan Farren anymore.
Hey, listen, I got to tell you, Kurt, I was wanting to let you know this. We went to Wrestle Reunion, the 3 of us did last year. Whoops, I'm sorry. I just punched the cat. I'm sorry.
Oh, Lord.
But and the cat sold it. But we went to the Wrestle Reunion last year, and I've already started getting tweets and stuff about next year's, which
really
is the last week of January. And there's some interesting things. They're going to have Ring of Honor is going to come back on that Friday night, and then they haven't announced anything officially. I would imagine it'd probably PWG on the Saturday night, but they are going to have, in the great tradition, they said, of the old California territory, what they were planning on doing was they were going to have a Legends Battle Royal.
Oh my
Now
Lord!
They didn't announce anybody for it yet, but I would imagine maybe some of the guys that still are in working shape or whatever from the show are going to probably do the Battle Royal.
I'm curious who.
I'm very curious to see who, because there's a lot of time for people to add and whatever. It's interesting. Some of the people they announced are going to be there. One of them, to me, it's really interesting for California. Really stands out as not being a good choice, but it'll be interesting, and that is Mike Graham.
Mike Graham?
Mike Graham?
Yeah.
Has he ever even been in the state of California?
I don't think he ever has, but they're going to bring him in. So I would have to imagine that maybe, how they work? They try to work picture opportunities where you can do, you pay a certain amount, and then there's different combinations.
Yeah.
Maybe they're going to be doing some sort of second generation or third generation wrestlers or whatever. There's one. I read about this. There's a Wrestle Reunion this weekend, and I think it's North Carolina or whatever. And there is just one thing that just screams problems to me, and that is Tammy Sitch is doing a photo session in a bathing suit by the pool.
Oh dear.
And I'm just predicting now that that's maybe not a good idea with wrestling fans.
I think I would almost want to go to that convention and just get a hotel room about 2 stories above and just sit there and watch to see if anything goes wrong.
Yeah. But they have. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that would be worth the admission alone.
Yeah, there's always that case, and probably, I'll guarantee there'll be at least one picture that comes out of that of her standing next to a guy who looks like he has Down syndrome but really doesn't, and he's wearing a championship belt.
Yeah, that was me, man. Come on.
I know. I didn't know. I'm not. Here's the thing: it's like my wife works with developmentally disabled adults, and I always jokingly say to her, the people that you work with, your clients, are developmentally disabled adults. Your coworkers are retards. And that's basically, because when I say that, I don't mean that as something personal against people with Down syndrome. But let's face it, there have been a lot of guys. You go to wrestling shows, just like on Saturday. You go to wrestling shows, you see guys there, and you go, is something wrong with that guy or not?
yeah, you're wondering, what's this guy's story, you know?
And, it's kind of like that, and that's not an insult to people who have that. It's more of the insult to the fan than anything else. But one thing I wanted to add, though, also, it looks like also going to appear there is Tito Santana.
Which would be fun to see.
Paul Orndorff. I'm wondering maybe if they're going for like a WrestleMania 1 theme or whatever. But here's the one that made me want to go. Here's the one that got me excited about it. It's January 28th, I think, through the 30th. Mr. Saito.
No way.
Mr.
That would be
Saito
worth going to.
That's going to. And what I want to do is I want to take you to McDonald's for lunch. But
but you want to wait till 11 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah, exactly. We'll throw a big rock through the window. But no, it'd be great. Here was, Masa Saito with Kinji Shibuya. It would be great. It's too bad that Kinji has left us because it would be great to. That would be a picture opportunity right there. That would be awesome.
And for what I understand, Saito's had a lot of health problems with arthritis and such.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that with all the stuff. And I mean, I have mild arthritis, so I can imagine what it'd be like for someone like him.
After years of bumps and wrestling.
Yeah, after just bumps and everything. Because we have a couple. We've talked about this. There's a couple bumps that we've taken that kind of linger.
Oh yes, yes.
I was reading. I was catching up on some back issues of the Cauliflower Alley newsletter, and I was reading the one on the AT shows, the Carnival Wrestling, which is really great. I'm fascinated by that. And they were talking to Billy Wicks, who worked a lot of the AT shows, and he said that, like in 1940, he did a German suplex and bridged up or whatever, and felt something pop in his neck. And that has stayed with him the rest of his life.
In fact, it's funny, when I first got back into wrestling in 1991, you remember those shows, Dan, at La Fogata?
Oh, yeah.
I remember wrestler Halcon Blanco just gave me an uppercut, and I just zigged when I should have zagged and took the bump a little incorrectly. And I'm not in great pain or anything, but I still feel that around my shoulder blades. It still nags at me.
Well, yeah, I mean,
it was when I started getting back into it, and but that's the only one that's really nagged at me throughout these years. But I know exactly.
Well, I have one from taking a body slam in Pomona when I was refereeing, where the guy in Pomona.
Who did you take body slam from in Pomona?
Thunder Machine.
Oh my gosh, good old Augie.
Who brought me down kind of I was too big for him, and he didn't get and he also didn't call it, so I didn't know it was coming. And he brought me down a little more on my side, and to this day, when the weather changes or once in a while, I'll get a little pain in the bottom left corner of my back, and that's been with me for like 15 years.
Well, speaking of getting nostalgic,
yes.
Before we get too deep in the show, I want to, because I think we'll probably have another caller or two. So before we...
Yeah, we already have a caller.
Oh, well, let's hold on for just a second.
He's already on the line. He's already on the line.
I am?
Yeah.
Wait, how long have I been on the line?
He's on the line. Let's hold that thought, because one of the things that I want to talk about briefly is I just wanted to give a little tribute to a wrestler who was really special in my years of fandom. July 12th, we lost Popitekus.
Yes.
And I just remember so clearly, in 1989, I was in my 20s, and I was going through the premature second childhood because our local cable station, Jones Intercable, finally added Galavision to the cable lineup, and I could watch the Friday night Arena Mexico show or the Arena Coliseo show, whichever one it was that week, on Sunday afternoon. So just a 2-day delay, which was really nice. And on top of that, Physico, Pat Hood, Greg Regalatos, our old friend Steve Gerber, and I used to make frequent trips on Friday nights to Auditorio de Tijuana in my beat-up Oldsmobile station wagon.
Back when you could, yeah.
Yes, remember that? And that's when we also started going to the San Bernardino arena shows, the Win shows that Red Bastien promoted
Right.
that summer of '89, and that's a very special place with us, Dan, because that's where I met you, Mary Lou,
Right.
Danny Wolf.
Yeah.
I probably met Gary Sparrow that day too.
You might have. That's easily just a little over 20 years ago.
Yes, it is. It was, and I also met Johnny Legend that day. In fact, that's where I met Greg Regalado also, the Hanna brothers.
That's right.
Met a lot of people at that show, but one of the things I remember was those were the days.
I actually thought that you were Dave Meltzer at first.
Seriously?
Yeah, I did. I thought you were Dave Meltzer, so I came up behind you and urinated on you. Remember? No.
You were doing your best Terry Bam Bam Gordy imitation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
For people out there who don't know, a friend of Dave Meltzer's was mistaken for Dave in Japan.
Also named another guy named Dave.
Yeah, another guy named Dave. He was mistaken for Dave Meltzer in Japan.
I think.
In a restroom, and Terry Gordy took a leak on him.
That's right.
Which, remember, is a sign of endearment from the Freebirds.
That's
this
right.
is true.
And, ironically, before you get back to Popitekus, I do want to mention it's funny that I'm friends with Bill Anderson on Facebook, and he did a really nice thing, a little piece about the San Bernardino Arena. I don't know if you saw it, Kurt.
Oh, no, I didn't.
But they go through his back ones, and a bunch of people got on there and was reminiscing about it, which is kind of nice. So,
I will have to check that out. Yeah.
So go back to Popitekus.
Okay. One of the things I remember back then is we were beginning to see a lot more of Negro Casas, who at that time, like Pat Hood and Fizzy and I, that was our absolute end-all favorite wrestler. Still is for me.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
We're becoming familiar with these really awesome workers like Javier Cruz, Atlantis, Pirata Morgan, Dandy, Acai, and Felino.
Right.
And add to that mix that a lot of us just got acquainted with Cohen, who was in his Tijuana rookie years, and here was a guy who was studying the intricacies of his new profession with the fervor of a grad student.
Yeah.
And we dug a lot of the above-mentioned luchadors for their smooth technical wizardry, their keen rudo and technico sense, and their totally awesome topes. But I clearly remember when Fizzy, Hood, Gerber, and myself were chugging to the Oldsmobile to the San Bernardino Arena for one of those wind tapings. On the drive there, we were talking about the recent shows we saw on Sean Galavision, especially about, I think it was Jerry Estrada and the Satanico feud that was starting up, and we were just all over that. And then we touched upon another wrestler we liked, and we experienced something stronger than nodding approval. This was more like a symbiotic electric high five upon the mention of a technico by the name of Popitekus. And I have no recollection which one of us brought up the name Popitekus that day, but we immediately agreed that he ranked high on the cool factor. We raved about this dark copper-tone colored heavyweight who looked like a hybrid of Teddy Ruxpin and Gigantor the space-age robot. This was a wrestler who just stood out in the crowd. And to put things in further perspective, we were really marks at that time for 5-star matches. And today, anybody who knows... Yeah, and me today. I don't even... Stars are out of the equation for me these days. Now, Popitekus was a really good worker, but he was by no means a 5-star wrestler. He didn't have a lot of 5-star matches, but the more we talked about this guy we saw on Galavision, we realized that we were unapologetic Popitekus fans. And what did we like about Popey? This behemoth technico with dark, brooding eyes were contradicted by this childlike smile, which totally lent him that totally ídolos de los niños aura that was further emphasized when Dr. Alfonso Morales would shout, "Super Popey!" during Popey's televised matches. And Popitekus, he dwarfed his opponents, who would often sell the size difference with a wince before locking up with him. Popitekus probably could have gotten away with doing the big man spots, just the strong man, Vader-type spots.
Strong man,
am I stammering like crazy or what today? I'm sorry, what was that?
I was saying strongman generically or strongman John Anderson?
Strongman generically. He could have gotten away probably with doing something along the lines of John Anderson, just had the wrestlers bounce off him. But from the first opening Latigo high spot to any six-man tag team tope finale, this guy took the backdrops, did the dives out of the rings. This guy worked hard. And hard as he worked, like I said, he was not a natural five-star wrestler. And we were five-star wrestling fans, and Popitekus was the turning point where I said, I just dig this guy. I dig watching this guy wrestle more than I do watching flawless five-star high-throttle wrestlers who give us high-throttle five-star matches. And the more I saw Popitekus, the more he achieved this cult-like status for me and all my friends. For me, Popitekus was sheer fun. Popitekus was enthusiasm. Popitekus stood out even in a lucha libre zone where wrestlers already looked pretty way out. Popitekus was one of several figures that reminded me of that the pursuit of lengthy, perfectly executed matches was not the reason I became enamored with pro wrestling when I was a kid. Fun lured me into the madhouse of wrestling fandom. Freddie Blassie biting his foe's forehead open, John Toeless drooling during his interviews, wrestling hippies, dynamic heroes battling vile heels. And I can still appreciate a really hot five-star match, but I dig the fun aspect with greater intensity, whether it be kitschy camp or just good old school histrionics. And that day, as we approached the San Bernardino Arena conversing about Popitekus on that Popey bonding day, Pat Howard, who became better known as Larry Rivera, the announcer of XPW, he cried out that super Popey cry in perfect Dr. Alfonso Morales pinch. And that became our battle cry every time we hit any wrestling event. Every one of us tried to belt out our own Popitekus battle cry, but only Pat Howard could do it justice. That's why I did a half-attempted one earlier here on the podcast. I only got to see Popitekus live once, but I could not have picked a better night to see him. In 1991, at Auditorio Tijuana, in a hair versus mask match versus Super Muñeco, Popitekus and Super Muñeco just amped it up. On that evening, he and Super Muñeco delivered a 5-star bloodbath. This match couldn't have started more beautifully. Super Muñeco in the center of the ring, holding a huge bag of candy. All the children hit the ring and started gathering the candy that he was throwing to them all over. They were all over Super Muñeco like ants at a picnic. And I'm telling you, there were so many kids in the ring, you could hardly even see Super Muñeco. And then you hear these loud screams, these loud cries of children break out. They scattered and they jumped out of the ring as fast as they could because the new Rudo version of Popitekus hit the ring, trashed Super Muñeco smack in the middle of his candy fest, chased the kids out of the ring. Muñeco juiced big time, and there was something really, really eerie about a masked puppet who bleeds. And they had a sweet slobber knocker of a stipulation match. This was sweet, violent brawling, sprinkled with planchas, topes, and chair shots. This heat was beautiful, amped up when Popitekus bled along with his foe. And as in all of his career stipulation matches, except for one, Popitekus lost the final fall and lost his hair to Super Muñeco. After the show, Physico and I made no pretensions of being cool that night. We were not leaving the arena until we got our picture taken with Popitekus. We caught him as he walked down that huge tube-like exit at the Auditorio. After we obtained our photo op, a man carrying his little daughter in his arms walked up to Popitekus. Popey had a bandage around his head and had behaved like a badass son of a bitch earlier that evening. But the father told his little daughter, "See, that's Super Popey, that guy you like on TV." And she obviously remembered the technical version of Popitekus and looked a little apprehensive at the new monster of a man. but she mellowed once Super Popey gave her that sweet, childlike grin of his, and both dad and daughter left looking really happy. A few years later, Popitekus joined El Verdugo and Hombre Bala to form a trio called Las Cavernicolas. I just butchered that name. They were decked out in thorough caveman gear and face paint, and they were a hit. And it's probably what Popitekus is best known for, though I really dug the Popitekus of old because he was cool simply as Popitekus. But as long as somebody enjoyed watching them as Los Cavernicolas, I won't knock it because, like I said earlier, it's all about having fun. And since our last podcast, July 12th, Hilario Vargas Ruiz, better known as Popitekus, fell victim to thrombosis brought on by diabetes, and he passed away. He was only 53 years old, and in his obituary on Popitekus, our own DR Luch, Steve Sims, said his death actually brought a greater outpouring of sad memories and sighs than did the death of Scorpio Sr., at least at the various places I visit. It seems Popitekus made a great impression among many who followed wrestling in the 1980s and 1990s as the lovable big guy. And I just want to say out there, Popitekus, you left a great impression on me, and you will always have a fan in me.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week, folks.
I know this took a while, but
no, that's okay.
We had a caller call in and hang up.
I know if I was gonna list my 10 favorite wrestlers of all times, I'm not talking about the 10 greatest workers, just my 10 favorite. Popitekus does have a place on that top 10 easily.
Well, I remember 15, 16, 17 years ago, you just talking with the great passion that you just had about Popitekus. There's not a lot of video available of him, though, is there, really, for people to see?
That's the bummer. And he had a presence on Galavision, I think all that summer in 1989, but I think very few people saved those tapes. I think there's a really
not
good
a lot
tape
of the 89 stuff around.
Yeah, the one tape I did find was there was a tape where he, Dandy, and Super Astro wrestled Los Brazos.
Ooh.
And he and Brazo de Plata did a great sumo wrestling spot with each other. And Popitekus does this awesome tope where when I mentioned he looked like Gigantor, the space-age robot, he flew. He looked like Gigantor when he did that tope. And silence.
Gentlemen. Well, see, I was just thinking about the one thing you gave me a copy of the movie Santa Sangre to see.
Oh, yes. How could I have forgotten to mention that?
Because Popitekus was in it, but what you didn't tell me was he was naked in it, which has scarred me for most of my life now. It's horrible when you say Popitekus, the first thing that pops in my head is the shower room scene from Santa Sangre.
That's right. You got to see Popey sin ropa.
Oh,
totally in all his glory. Yes, Santa Sangre is actually a film that's disturbing on many levels.
It makes Twin Peaks look like Pippi Longstockings. It really does.
That's a great way of putting it.
I don't know. The Pippi Longstocking movie was kind of creepy.
Yeah, it was creepy.
Well, yeah, especially that version that Quentin Tarantino did, but that's a different one.
But wasn't the Pippi Longstocking movie that was on TV here over the years like a weird dubbed foreign one?
Yeah, was it Swedish?
I think so.
I think so. It has that really strange, and I've watched a lot of movies and find myself really open to stuff, but there is some things that just creep me out, and there's certain Mexican films that are horribly dubbed or whatever, and there's other things.
Like K. Gordon Murray?
Like Gay Gordon Murray's things, but I do remember Santa Sangre, though, really was. You just sit there and just go, what is going on? It was strange. It was very, very strange and hard to explain. But did you know, actually, Kurt, that Dr. Lucha, when talking to Brian Alvarez in the last couple of weeks, had mentioned Popitekus and had brought your name up as, like, the president of the Popitekus fan club.
Oh, no way. I have to listen to that. Since being on vacation, I have heard almost no podcasts I have a lot of Figure 4 podcasts to catch up on.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead, Fredo.
No, that was me.
It's you. Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, why don't you introduce yourself, Bix, because I mean you've been on the show for like a half hour or whatever, and and we're just teasing you. We know that he meant a lot to you, but that did go on longer than a PWG show.
I was looking on Wikipedia. The Pippi Longstocking movies in the U.S. were the Swedish Pippi Longstocking television series, edited into 2 feature films.
Typically, we're talking about Pippi Longstocking.
And you know what? And for your information, you can get the entire Pippi Longstocking collection at Frank & Sons.
I already have it.
Can you? Do you really,
have it, Fredo?
For my nieces. I bought it for my nieces years ago. Because they freaked out.
I have a good friend at work. She did one of those Facebook quizzes, you know, the Facebook quizzes that you can post about yourself.
Uh-huh.
And she said, if I could be anybody else for one day, who would I be? And I guessed incorrectly, but her answer was Pippi Longstocking.
Oh,
so I just happened to be cruising Frank & Sons one day right around her birthday, and somebody was playing those nightmarish films on one of the televisions. I'm saying, oh, my God, I stumbled across a birthday present.
Yeah,
and of course, Dan Farren, you probably remember Second City Television's great satire called Peter Longstockings, featuring John Candy.
Exactly.
Oh, what's that?
What was that noise?
Oh, Bix is playing the... Oh, no. He's watching YouTube.
Popitekus has returned from the grave with the theme from Pippi Longstockings.
Hey, so Dan, are we going to talk about MPW?
Yeah, we can talk about MPW.
You haven't been sworn to silence or anything like that?
Well, you know what? I'm not going to. I'll address this and whatever, okay? But I'm not going to talk a lot about it because I still don't quite understand exactly what happened.
Okay.
But I don't know. Did you hear anything about this at all, Bix?
Why? Did someone shoot on someone or something?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wonderful.
We had. You know, there's 2 things when people talk about wrestling cliches. 2 of the worst cliches over the last 10, 12 years has been the wrestler shooting or going into business for themselves or working the boys. You know, there's something to me extremely insulting about working the boys. It's just something about that. People forget that, you know, it worked one time with Brian Pillman, but it has never worked ever since. And in many situations, it just makes for weird spots in the show that just aren't entertaining for the audience. And we had a situation with this guy, GQ Money, who held the Millennium Championship. And around 3 or 4 days before the show, he started to make some noise that he was very unhappy. I mean, that he was having to wrestle Angel, who was a rival, is somebody he worked with a lot in XPW, but also works for a different a school training wrestlers. He also was unhappy about because Adam Pearce was on the card. That Adam Pearce had more spot on the flyer or whatever. I don't know if it's...
So you're saying GQ Money was upset that Adam Pearce, not Angel.
Yeah, not Angel, but there was a lot of little things there, and I don't know if, again, I don't know GQ well enough. The first time I actually ever seen him wrestle live was on the last MPW show, and he was very, very good and very entertaining. But, you know, he has a reputation for being kind of offbeat. And what he did was, he was the last match scheduled, and we got, you know, it was pretty easy to figure out something was going down. And there had been talk in the dressing room that he was going to throw the belt down or give it to somebody or do something. So a bunch of us huddled real quick, and we came up with the idea if he does that, then what we'll just do is strip him of the belt, and we'll do a battle royal at the end and give the winner of the battle royal the belt, just to send people home so they're not confused. Because that's exactly what happened is when he went out and started rambling and doing this thing, the audience is dead silent. I mean, dead silent. They had no idea what was going on. It confused them. He had a match. The match he had with Angel was pretty much kind of a mess. It was all over the place. It was part work, part shoot, part, a little bit of everything.
In fact, I just want to quote David Bowie in relation to Angel in the song All the Young Dudes. Now, Lucy looks sweet because he dresses like a queen, but he can kick like a mule. He's a real mean team.
Yeah, I mean...
I'll leave it at that. You can continue now.
Oh, no, just basically what happened was the match was really messy, and Angel slapped... I mean, there was a couple receipts paid throughout the match. And, again, supposedly there has been some bad blood between the two of them from XPW days. But, here's the thing. When you're around wrestling as long as I've been, you see these things go on, and I automatically have a tendency not to believe anything when I see anything. So whether or not some of this was a work, some of it wasn't, I tend to believe that GQ, for whatever reason, wanted to try to kind of drum up some publicity or interest or whatever, decided to do this. He's a guy, and he makes his own decisions, and but you have to realize that some decisions have consequences. And when nobody knows what's going on, there's a lot of room for things to happen. And he got into an altercation with Angel after the show, and he also got punched in the face by Cincinnati Red as they were trying to get him out of the arena. So it was the main thing to me was I have no axe to grind with the guy. He does what he wants to, and that's fine. I know that from working on a show that I'm not really crazy about guys who come out and decide. It's like I think I explained this to you earlier, Kurt. I said it's like if you hire an actor to do Macbeth, and halfway through the second act he decides that he's going to stop the show and tell the audience that the people that put on the show stinks, and now I'm going to do Hamlet. That doesn't work.
Right, exactly.
It doesn't cut it.
Well, same if you were doing the Rocky Horror Show and one of the Transylvanians decided they were going to overshadow Dr. Frankenfurter. It's like.
So my thing is, I know that most of the guys that were involved don't have any kind of hard feelings toward him, but they just don't understand why. It just didn't make a lot of sense, and so basically that's what happened. And I think that he was thinking it was going to make a bigger, to get over the internet and be bigger than it actually was. But, that
For Christ's
happened.
sake, it was at the Fit Pit in Chatsworth. I mean,
exactly.
What did you think was going to, did you think Fox News and Google was going to come down there? And
Well, Google's too busy teaming with Verizon to take over the world, so they have no other, they have better things to do. But it was just, he made a decision, he went with it. I think it was badly handled, and I think that it got out of hand. But that's that, and now we move on and we go on to the next show, which we're doing next Saturday in Simi Valley, and we go on from there. So if you ask me about what happened, that's all that I really know, because I was mostly out front doing, as you guys know who were there, I was mostly out front trying to do damage control. So I wasn't in the back.
You had the pleasant on-the-spot decision where you held the microphone at ringside, so when GQ Money went on his rant, you were the lucky one who was going to be able to cut him off verbally if he started saying something, too uncouth.
Yeah, I mean, that was the other thing also. That was the other thing that was bad about it, too, is because there was a lot of cursing thrown around, and I'm by no means a prude or whatever, but people brought their kids to the show, and, that oftentimes, and the main thing is it brought the show to a complete stop, is what it did. And people pay good money to be entertained, and they don't want to walk out. You don't want them walking out of their show scratching their head going, well, what the hell is that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand that. So, the guy did what he thought had to be done, and, I have no animosity toward him or anything. We all did what we had to do to save the show or make it work, and that was that, and we move on.
Yeah, actually, what you guys did to make it work actually worked out really well, because I don't think anybody's going to remember the GQ Money versus Angel match other than it was a little confusing. I think the audience was a little confused.
this is not something anybody's going to, that's going to pop up or going to be a big deal or whatever. It's just one of those weird things that happens in professional wrestling sometimes when egos and good ideas go bad.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have a
like you said, the Andy Kaufman and Brian Pillman working the boys. It's just like I said, it's insulting to the other wrestlers. It's insulting to the people involved with the show.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not their show to hijack. If somebody's putting money into a show, my feeling is I might give a suggestion or two, but I'm working for them.
Yeah, exactly.
They're the ones putting the money up.
Yeah, but so that's basically that wasn't. I mean, there were a lot of other. We had a good show. It moved very quickly. I was very pleased that we were able to correct the little bit of lapse in time that there was on the last one, where we had gaps between matches. We were able to knock through 11 matches plus a 10-minute intermission in just a little about 2 hours and 45 minutes. So that was pretty good. So I was pleased with that. So I mean, from my standpoint, we did what we had to do in that situation. But I don't understand, especially, we're not claiming, no one there is claiming to be, this is like the WWE or TNA or anything like that at all. We're just an independent fed trying to run as professionally as we can to make local fans happy. And I don't see we're handling things the way it was handled gets anybody any place.
Yeah, and I must say, other than that incident, the show ran really smoothly, and unlike the last show, I was able to actually sit back and drink in a lot of this show, and like you said, Dan, it moved very nicely. Matches didn't go too long, and it's the first time in a long time I actually sat back and watched the Ballard brothers, and I just forgot what awesome workers those guys are.
Oh, they really are, and and actually when I was watching them on Saturday night, it also they had a little bit of a hand in training The Miz, and you can see some of that in him sometimes when he works. But I was really pleased because I thought that everybody came through, everybody worked really hard, and a lot of the younger guys, the rookies that were trying to give a little color to and kind of bring them in and give them a chance to work with people and to move forward in this business, they all did a really good job, and I was very impressed with all of them. So, hopefully we'll keep moving forward, and our goal is not to, we're not going to sit here and be on, we're going to be on ESPN 4 or whatever in 6 months with a weekly show. We just want to put on we just want to put on the best shows possible locally for fans, and that's what we'll continue to try to do.
Hey, Dan, we have another caller now.
Okay.
Hello?
Who's there?
This is Barry Cohen.
Oh,
Barry Cohen, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing very well.
Introduce who you are.
Okay, I am co-promoter of MPW. So I kind of experienced everything a little firsthand. That was the backstage version of the Jerry Springer show for the work.
Somebody told me it looked like cops backstage. That's what it looked like.
I think half the wrestlers were cops at the show.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, that's one of the funny things about MPW is a great many of the wrestlers have law enforcement backgrounds, and it makes for a very interesting situation sometimes.
So Dan, you're telling me I could have filed my police report at the MPW show?
You could have.
No.
Oh, you could. I mean, Fredo, you could. I mean, nobody knows more about lost identities than wrestlers. So, if you had your identity stolen.
Delusional identities, yes.
Oh, my name's on the insurance certificate. Please don't do that. No, but it ended up being, aside from what happened, it really ended up being a great show. I mean, people did get to see, a lot of great matches, except for what happened at the end. But I will say this, being co-promoter of the show, and my role kind of in MPW is like the event coordinator aspect of it, tables, chairs, sound, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't even know what was going on or what he was going to do. And, that kind of presents a real problem on my end. So,
yeah, well, you guys, I really have to say, you guys problem solved really well. I mean,
thank you.
You moved it along. You had the on-the-spot battle royal to determine the championship. And best day, you didn't have the Battle Royal last forever. It was swift, sweet.
Well, I'll tell you the one thing that disappointed me, I was really hoping that Lucky Pierre would be in there and finally take that world championship that he so deserves.
It's that damn Vandal Drummond who wouldn't let Lucky Pierre come out of the dressing room. He wouldn't let him come out, period. My God.
B.S. Cohen has some problems with Lucky Pierre, you know.
Yes, Mr. Cohen does have some problems. It seems that Mr. Cohen and Lucky Pierre have had some differences of opinion, and on Saturday night, Lucky Pierre kissed Mr. Cohen on the lips.
I didn't see it coming. It didn't count. I didn't see it coming.
Rumor is that Mr. Cohen enjoyed the kiss. Rumor is also that yesterday people saw a very big smile on Barry Cohen's face when Proposition 8 was deemed unconstitutional. And I just want to say, Vandal Drummond, I just want to say on behalf of Lucky Pierre and everybody else I know, Proposition 8, take that. Suck it, suck it hard, suck it deep. Fuck you, Proposition 8. That's what I have to say.
Well, all I know is that you may have created a controversy here because also Lucky Pierre was two-timing with Broadway Danny Wolf, who came down to the show to celebrate his birthday, wound up running into his old friend Lucky Pierre again, and during Lucky Pierre's introduction, Danny Wolf was once again humped from behind.
That's right. He got a lap dance from Lucky Pierre. Lucky Pierre, although he felt he didn't deserve it, so Lucky Pierre had to kind of like take him down to the ground and say, "Don't worry, Danny, this is for free. Lucky is giving you this lap dance right on your beautiful chin." And I think Danny Wolf had a wonderful birthday.
I think he did. I think he enjoyed it much more than he's willing to let on. But going back to
how old is that? Was Danny Wolf Saturday?
I don't know if I should mention his date because he's one of those people that might feel a little self-conscious about it. I joked.
The rumor is that he turned 69 that day.
One way or another.
But no, actually, I do want to say one thing going back to Saturday night. Again, I really think it's really important to give a lot of the guys who just start off, rookies in the business, a chance to give them a place to learn and to grow. And the guys that worked on Saturday night, there was some really, really good guys. There's a guy called the Hobo who is an excellent prospect for the future. And I also think that Barry's tag team, Big Meat Incorporated, actually looked much better than I ever thought they would on Saturday night. So I'm really pleased.
Big Feet
Incorporated. Yes.
I thought you said Big Feet Incorporated. I was I'm sure that Lucky Pierre loved that.
Yeah, Lucky Pierre likes Big Meat too, but that's two different things. But
if we get a shoe sponsor, then we can be Big Feet Incorporated. That's
right. Yes, there you go. Foot Fetish International. Well, Lucky Pierre.
I wasn't even thinking foot fetishes. I was thinking big, blah blah, big feet, blah blah, etc.
In fact, we should put in that tag team match.
I wasn't saying that Lucky Pierre's favorite vehicle was a tow truck. He did, however, go to the Terry Garvin
does it well, I must say. Well, Lucky Pierre did try to do a little preventative measure, so he put his patented hold, the salad shooter, on one of the members of Big Meat.
Yeah, I saw that. Yes, I saw that. I was right at ringside. I saw that. But
yes, it was disgusting.
Hey, Frank,
I don't know if I've ever seen the salad shooter.
Oh, the salad shooter.
You don't need to, Bix. You really don't need to see it.
You can see it on YouTube, as a matter of fact.
Okay, what does it entail?
Look for Lucky Pierre versus Physico Nuclear on the Johnny Legend show in 2007, and you will see the salad shooter.
Oh, boy.
What's the one
It hasn't been taken off YouTube yet.
It's the one I uploaded,
It's still on?
Yes, it's the one that Fredo shot.
Yeah.
Fredo shot this footage.
Yeah, it's right there. It should be there.
On MPW On Demand, there's a great match, too, with Lucky Pierre versus King Favi.
Oh, that's a great match.
That's right.
That's
In fact, Barry, since we have you on, I would love to just talk about what was your initial involvement in MPW, how you got turned on to the pro wrestling biz in general?
Yeah, totally. I actually first started, I was working at the Jewish Community Center in West Hills. And we were thinking of like some cool events to do, and I've always watched pro wrestling. I've been to a few WrestleManias, and it's always been kind of my passion. And I started out DJing and doing events and everything, and I'm kind of thinking, well, why can't I do something together? So I found a ring, which was actually owned by the UIWA at that time, and I produced a show called the Jewish Wrestling Federation. So
excellent.
So that's where I met Red and Samoa Joe and Doc Marley and Logan X. And Logan X wrestled. I took local workers and gave them Jewish names. So Logan X was Ladka X for the night, and we had David the Moyo, who came to the ring, won the match, and tried to circumcise his opponent with hedge clippers because that's all I could afford at the time.
Oh, so, Johnny Legend would be proud of you.
Thank you.
Did you use Yom Ripper?
Huh?
Oh, Yom Ripper, yes.
I don't remember.
No, you didn't have Yom Ripper, but we still have the Yom Ripper mask if you ever want Yom Ripper.
Yom Ripper. Well, it was called Hebrew Havoc, so we ended up, and we drew like 300 people, which was great. So that's kind of when I met the UIWA guys, and I kind of got into it through Doc, and there was a lot of crazy stuff kind of going on in UIWA at the time, and Logan X and I kind of clicked. And, I had the JCC venue, and we were running UIWA shows out of there. But, Doc and I kind of saw things differently and different visions and everything. So I kind of created, Paul and I were talking about putting together our own events. And that's kind of really the how MPW was formed. Then we met Dan and everybody else. I mean, that's the gist of it. So we ran MPW and at the JCC and all those shows and everything that you see on YouTube, on the MPW On Demand. And then after it faded away, I went to Vegas and got a degree in event management and marketing, basically how to put on shows, and here we are.
Barry,
awesome.
Tell about some of the guys who actually were working MPW who've gone on to bigger things at this point.
Yeah, we had Christopher Daniels. He was at a lot of our shows. Samoa Joe at the Jewish Wrestling Federation was one of the guys setting up the ring, and and after the MPW shows. It was great. We would always all go to Denny's, and it would be like Dan, Paul, me, Samoa Joe, Red, all these other people at like 2:30 in the morning when we finished tearing down the ring and everything. God, who else? Frankie Kazarian.
Yeah.
God, who else? So many.
Loki,
I
Rocky
seem to remember all.
Ricky Reyes. I remember some of those shows. Super Dragon.
Dragon. We had Chris Chetty at our show.
Brian Kendrick.
Vampiro. Yeah, Brian Kendrick was at a few of our shows.
Yeah.
Actually, right after he left XPW, we had the Messiah a couple shows too. So.
Yeah, we had the Messiah come, and he actually when he did a promo at our first show, or at our the first show after his deal with XPW was done, which was really cool. I mean, back in the day, MPW was like a dream match fed. Where
and there were a lot of guys who still are around who pop in but there were guys like Craze and what's his heart Tech 9 and a lot of other guys like Phenomenal Phil who are a lot of those guys were just there to really kind of were the glue that held everything together.
Yeah, a lot of the talent from UIWA ended up wrestling for our shows. Like
and Adam Pearce too.
Yeah, Adam Pearce. I mean, was just at our regular show. That was kind of the controversy on Ryan's deal because he was upset. But I told him, I said, Adam Pearce, has been with us since the beginning. I mean, he wrestled on a ton of our shows, and now he's head booker for Ring of Honor and NWA champ. And he comes and wrestles our show. I mean, that just means so much to us, to have him back and everything. And he's a great guy.
And legend has it also, Barry, if I'm correct. Wasn't there a young man named John Cena who actually almost did a couple of the shows?
Yes, John Cena. He did one or two UIWA shows that I was at. But we were going to bring him in on the show that Frankie Kazarian dropped the belt on, which I believe was the second show. But we couldn't use UPW guys at the time because we ended up getting a call. I think it was like a couple hours before our show or something like that, or Frankie even came up and he goes, I can't work. And we're like, huh? He goes, I was told I can't work. And don't forget, at that time, UPW was basically a feeder fed for WWE. So they weren't going to do anything at the time to piss, UPW off for Rick Bassman. And so, I mean, it was kind of like booking on the fly. So and Cena was supposed to be on that show, and it just didn't happen.
Whatever happened to him?
Who knows? Who
Yeah.
knows? I just can't see him. I mean,
I can't see him making it,
I can't see, you can't see, or whatever it is, but,
around the same time, actually, actually, it was maybe a little later that I remember when, I forget if it was when Les Thatcher still had the developmental thing, or if it was right after, or if it was an OVW thing, but there was going to be a camp, like, right around the time that IWA Mid-South did their 300th show. And, they had various, Les Thatcher guys that they used regularly, like Whitmer and the other Matt Stryker and all that. And I remember, and they all canceled after being given spots in the, tryout camp.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Been there, done that.
I love the fact that there is that situation. The guy called. How'd you like to be billed as you're the guy who's the other Matt Stryker? Yeah. How would you like
the
to be
more well-known
that?
one? He used to be the more well-known one.
He is. He is the more well-known one.
Well,
kind of like
I'm thinking the Ohio one was the more well-known one.
Yeah, the Ohio one was, and that's what's so sad is he becomes the other Matt Stryker, and he was the better known.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder who made more money, Matt Stryker or Jeff Stryker.
Oh, Jesus.
In the long run, it's wrestling. Nobody makes any money.
Well, I think Jeff Stryker produced some money frequently, actually.
That's what's always funny. There's always situations where you hear local egos will get really big, and you hear somebody say, I've made more money than you have in this business, and I always want to yell out, hey, and I've lost more money than you guys have ever made in this business.
Anybody who's promoted knows that well.
Yeah.
Or just ask, what'd you do with it? Who knows?
Yeah, really.
Paid the boys.
Yeah. Oh man, but I gotta say this. Oh, go ahead, Dan.
Oh no, I was saying this is what I like about it. This is what Kurt and I joke about it all the time. Neither one of us over the years or whatever have ever sent a tape in to any of the large groups or whatever because we like working locally. We like it here. I told that story several weeks ago when we joked about after the Secrets of Professional Wrestling revealed or whatever. For some reason I went berserk for a couple of days and thought, well, maybe they might pick me up as this character. But outside of that, mostly it's like I've always been fine staying around here. But to me, the coolest thing is watching guys come along and being able to help them or maybe give them a little push one way or the other. I mean, Kurt, we saw that with Conan.
Yeah.
He was working those Muscle Rock shows on military bases when we first met him back in 1990, and he would call us up and want recommendations, or could we send him tapes on certain things because he was such a student of the game and wanted to learn. And then, Rey Mysterio Jr., who was, 15? He was
14 or 15. He was Coley Bree.
But he was Coley Bree. And I have to show you, I'm going to have to post sometime some of the pictures when he had no tattoos and no developmental, no development at all in the chest. It was just, he just was who he was, a 14-year-old boy. But he was doing local shows for Alex Knight out here at the IAWA, and we saw him, remember that first time, in an opener at a bingo place in Santa Ana when he was wrestling Psychoses. So along the years through that and through MPW originally and through MPW now, to me the coolest thing is to give guys a chance to work. And I by no means claim to have any kind of, a push or whatever, or did anything to make them reach where they got to, because it was all up to them to do that. But, if you give the guy an opportunity or something, it might, it might just change the business. So that's always the cool thing to me, and that's the thing more than anything else I ever want to get out of working wrestling.
Well, and I think we enjoy being involved on the level we are. It never becomes a job to us. It never becomes a burden. And I think there's a lot of indie guys who don't want to admit that they like that. I don't want wrestling as a career. I like it on the level we're doing it. It's
and you remember
fun.
Also what we did was, at one point we did get a little tired of it, and after our friend Larry Doyle died, it wasn't fun anymore, because we didn't have our friends, and we weren't, if you're not going to make any money, if you're going to hang out with your friends and have a good time, that's wonderful. But, we had lost yet another friend, and we stepped away for a long time, and you and I never really figured we'd ever wind up coming back, or doing anything ever again. And Kurt and I had joked about it that this was our last run, man. I tell you,
Totally.
This is it. When this is over, we're done. Of course, it never pays to make a statement. So, but
never say never.
But I mean, in general, to me, that's something that's forgotten quite often. We've all gone through those phases. I remember in the '80s, God, every used car salesman in the world was going to be Hulk Hogan. It was going to be the easiest thing in the world. All you got to do is take a lot of steroids, get a big old look about you, and get out there. And then in the '90s, a lot of guys said, "Well, I don't know how to learn how to wrestle. I can just punch like Steve Austin," And it's
in fact, I remember that 1980s phase like yesterday. In the dressing room, in would walk some, bodybuilder, and he'd just be looking down his nose at all the guys like, "I'm going to make it big," and then you'd never see him again.
Well, yeah, I mean, we saw them. You may remember when Herb Abrams was running those, whatever the hell those
UWS.
Those shows.
In Reseda.
In Reseda. He was doing the ones in Reseda. I remember
as a kid.
Yeah. I mean, in fact, it embarrassed the hell out of me, but when ESPN showed some of the old ones from like 15 years ago or more, I'm sitting there watching it, and I go, "Oh my God, there's me 15 years ago." Oh God!
In fact, Dan, this is the perfect opening. You have to tell about the night you worked for Herb Abrams.
Well, I'll say that in 1 second. It's a very short and simple story. But the other thing was, but there was a guy. There was a guy there who I had known who was working in a jobber position. And he was going to be Sid Vicious. And anytime somebody has Sid Vicious as their business plan, I think it's a bad idea. But he was going to be Sid Vicious, and he got in the ring with Paul Orndorff, and Orndorff hit him so hard he crapped his pants.
Oh my God!
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
oh my God,
for real. Yeah. And Orndorff actually, I think I even saved this when they reran it. Went to give the guy the pile driver, got him halfway up and went, "Oh no," and stopped, and then did another move instead of hitting that way. But what happened was the one night I was sitting there, Billy Anderson came up to me because they were short of timekeepers. So he said, "Put on the headphones. You listen to the director and to Herb, and you ring the bell, and what you do is we'll tell you how long the match will be, and then when it comes up within a minute of that time, stick a pen behind your ear." And that'll signify to the referee that it's time to go home.
Oh, so it was your fault.
Yeah, it is my fault. No. What happened? Well, here's the thing: what happened was, as it progresses, they would say, "Okay, here's a Larry Zbyszko match, and it's going to go 8 minutes." And you go, and okay. Mm-hmm. And then the most amazing thing would happen, especially for a Larry Zbyszko match, it would go 5 minutes. Because they were so off on the time, the guys wanted just to get done and get out so quickly that no one ever hit their time. Meanwhile, Herb Abrams is on the microphone doing play-by-play, and he's so awful, and he's just messing things up right and left that the director is screaming in his headphones for him to shut up, screaming at Herb to shut up. And what Herb is, here's Herb. He's put all this money that he could have spent on cocaine, all this money into this show, and he's micromanaging it. He's more concerned that he wants me to, when the match ends, to hit the bell like 5 times instead of like, ding, ding, like that, it's over. So he keeps running over, and meanwhile, the guy, the director gets more and more furious as the evening goes on, and he just says, you know what, lock the cameras down. Just whatever shots you got right now, hold it. I don't give a crap anymore. This guy doesn't care. I don't care.
Oh, my God.
And then the show ended, and they said, wait right here. We'll be right back, and we'll give you your pay. And then if this was a movie, you would dissolve, and it'd be all dark, and there'd be nobody around anymore, and there'd be crickets in the background, and I'd still be standing there waiting for my pay.
And don't forget this. You paid to get in.
I paid to get in. They didn't even reimburse my ticket for me. That was the horrible part. And what I always laughed about was, usually it's not a good idea to make fun of somebody's death. But with Herb Abrams...
Oh, come on.
With Herb Abrams, somebody said, there was like 300 people at his funeral, and my reply to that is, well, if you give the people what they want, they'll show up. And also the thing was, I hear they had a closed coffin. And the reason they had a closed coffin was so that way Louis Spicoli and all the other guys that were owed money couldn't try to pull rings off at the last second or whatever it was so they could get some money.
There's gold in them their teeth.
Yeah, exactly. Grab me a tooth or something,
Oh, my God. Back in MPW's original run, Zug's Rift would tell me about that because, when he was managing.
He was, what was it, Colonel Red or Commander Red or something?
Was it Colonel De Beers?
No, he was Red. Mr. Red.
Mr. Red. He was Mr. Red. Okay. That's who he was. And
I didn't realize that was Zug's Rift. I thought he would just work there as Zug's Rift. I didn't know he was Colonel Red.
There's a YouTube video of him eating a hat. Like Orndorff, he's managing Paul Orndorff, and and he's like eating the hat like while talking, and it's just. I'll post it on it. Maybe I'll post it somewhere, but.
I know that was great because it was so funny. It just shows you sometimes, when money starts to get thin. In the beginning, he was doing the shows in L.A. and he brought he was bringing out. There was Nikita Koloff. They had Andre the Giant there and Lou Albano and all these guys and Cactus Jack. And then all of a sudden, he's back doing outside shows, like on the East Coast, and it's like, there's Mr. X and Bob Smith and, all these, as the money starts to go down, and that's everybody always jokes about, they made the rise and fall of WCW, and they joke about, the same thing with TNA. I think someone should do a book called just The Fall of Herb Abrams. And that's all, because there was never a rise. There was never anything that went up. It was just the fall.
Downhill and over the cliff.
I was reading Howard Brody's book, and he actually talks a lot about Herb Abrams in it.
In fact, it's funny you say that, because I read that book when I was on vacation. And
isn't it?
I want to say that.
Great.
That was an amazing
Herb Abrams was a strange little man, strange little man. And he's just, another situation where, I was talking to somebody, because I do stand-up comedy also out here, and this guy just told me he's opening up a comedy club. And I was told that this guy has basically sunk every penny he has into this comedy club.
Oh, boy.
And my reaction is, wouldn't it be better to sink it into a Roth IRA instead or something? Why would you want to, there is, I believe in myself, and then there's Bull Goose Looney. And that falls into Bull Goose Looney at that point.
Totally.
Especially nowadays. But especially with wrestling nowadays, and Barry, I know that you can. We've talked about this because we've had discussions about how much money to spend and how to try to invest in the local guys and take advantage of certain things because we see these feds all start out really big and then it goes lower and lower. And right now with professional wrestling, at probably the lowest popularity ebb I can think of in 25 years. It has to be the kind of thing where you guys have to be watching the purse strings all the time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Budget is so definitely a concern because a lot of the times the venue gets a percentage. We have to buy insurance. If the venue doesn't have chairs, we have to sink money into that, and all that's a factor. Even the flyers itself in the promotion, and we never have a full-time running staff. Everyone is doing this for the love of the business.
Yeah.
Sometimes the workers at MTW, we do with the workers, we want to take care of our workers first, but there's always other expenses that come up.
Well, like we joked about it. If someone takes a chair and whacks somebody over the head and breaks it, how much does that cost you?
Oh, it depends. If it's newer, they're going to bill me out at it could be like $30 a chair, if it's brand new. But
that can hire 5 workers.
Right. Well, exactly.
And that's one of those things I think. And I've seen a lot of indie promotions where, it's good to have a pre-show talk with the boys saying what's on limits, what's off limits.
Well, that's what we do.
I think a lot of promoters don't think of it. It's not ignorance or anything. It's just you don't think of those things until accidents happen.
We do that.
That was one of the funniest things that happened on the last show, and that was I was standing over by this table, and one of the Ballard brothers came over to me and said, it picked it up and started to walk away. They says, "Is this the table?" And I said, "It is now." What are you going to do? Turn around and put it back? We see those things that happen all the time that make me die laughing. Is when there's supposed to be stuff under the ring, and they can't find it, or they don't know what it is or where it is or whatever. That always makes me bust up laughing because it's like when you watch. I was watching one of the few times I've watched TNA recently, and I was watching the backstage street fight between Taylor Wilde and Sarita. And I love those backstage street fights where somebody picks up a chair and hits somebody with it, then gingerly puts the chair down and moves on to the next object. If you're in a street fight, wouldn't you just hang on to that for the time being instead of, they'll pick up here's a shovel, and they'll take a swing and they'll miss, and then they'll put the shovel back down again. It's like a video game.
Well, it's kind of what pisses me off about shoots all the time. It's like, well, if someone wants to shoot and if the match is stiff and if they're stiff using a chair and we don't know about it and if they haven't gone through the spots with our head booker or any of the bigger spots and we don't know what's going on, I don't know how much I'm gonna, and if they break 4 chairs on the way down from the top turnbuckle and I don't know about it, that's $50 that could have gone to the boys.
That's one of the things that we talk about shoots in general. The fact of the matter is, and some people may agree or disagree, and when I say shoot, I'm not talking about a shoot interview or a book or whatever. I'm talking about coming out and, that my favorite, when I hear a wrestler say, I'm shooting here, I keep thinking, I wish I had a gun because I would start shooting too right now.
Yeah,
because
thank you. I get so tired of them using that term as if it's going to blow people's minds.
I guarantee you, 80% of the audience doesn't even know what a shoot is.
That's the problem.
Right.
Plus, if they say, and this is a shoot, it's not a shoot.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. The people who do know what a shoot is.
It's the same way
to calm the promoter.
It's the same way that with people who use the phrase mark. It's one of it's like on the if you look on any kind of wrestling board, somebody will get mad and say, you're nothing but a mark, and I'm like, you sound so stupid saying that. Most people don't even know what the origin of the word mark comes from.
I do.
Oh, I know you do.
Yeah.
But in most cases,
or people who watch Carnival.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But if my feeling is if somebody says to me, "What's a mark?" I usually like to say to them, "Look in the mirror."
We're all marks.
We're all marks, and there's
everybody's a mark
wrong.
for something.
There's nothing wrong with being a mark.
When Roddy Piper walked into our locker room, everybody marked out.
Yeah, and they should.
We marked out. I marked out. Well, it's funny. I remember in one of the books written about Andy Kaufman, they talked about how, he was working everybody. Everybody was a mark to him. And the guy who wrote it pointed out how, despite that, he still firmly believed in this transcendental meditation and believed he could levitate and stuff like that. And so he was a mark for, everybody can say how they're above everything, but everybody's a mark for something, whether...
Yeah, everybody is, and that's the whole thing. To me, it's not an insulting word. To me, it's an endearing word because it means someone is such a fan over something that they really, really care about it more than a normal fan would. Now, granted, yeah, there are some wacky people. I'm not going to, basically defend all of them. But, like, for example, besides a lot of old school, old wrestling stuff or whatever, I'm a mark for Doctor Who. I love Doctor Who. I've been a mark for years of that. Or, like, for example, I love, and one of the things that annoys me most about, again, this is where you sound like an old man, about wrestling fans now, is that there's a lack of interest in what came before and in the history. I have no problem. I hear a lot of interviews with guys from, like, really hot local groups or whatever, and they're very interesting, but do I really want to listen to a guy who's been in the business 2 years? Or do I want to hear something that's historical based? Sometimes when I listen to Dave Meltzer talk, I get the impression that Dave would love just to throw a lot of this stuff out and just be able to write or talk about the old days. Talk about being a mark. Ever listen to Dave Meltzer when he talks about roller derby?
Oh, that's the most fascinating thing, because I would send Dave emails that were wrestling related.
Yeah.
He's busy. I'm obviously not the only person emailing him. He's getting like hundreds, thousands a day.
Yeah.
And so he would write me back with like a 3-word response like heard about that, thank you. And then when one of the local LA T-Bird games was a big hit recently in San Francisco, I wrote Dave an email about the game. He wrote back, and he wrote like a 2-page email talking about the glory days of roller derby.
Well, look at it. Think about it. The one article they talk about all the time, Kurt, is a biography he did of Ann Calvello.
That was amazing.
That's considered to be like the best article he's ever done, and it's not about wrestling.
I agree. Even if you've never seen roller derby, I tell everybody, get that issue of the Wrestling Observer. It's April 2006. All you have to do is write him and say, I want the Ann Calvello issue, and order it. It is so worth the $6, I believe it is.
Or you could wait. Like in 4 years, they'll be up.
Goes live. I was just about to ask one of them to check your pulse.
Good. Fredo's still with us. That's good.
If I don't talk, nobody else is gonna have you heard these guys? They're nonstop. Kurt and Dan,
Oh, it's all good. It's all good.
I'm the only one that's concerned about your well-being.
Fredo is sitting back, sipping cognac and smoking a cigar and just letting us ramble.
Hello?
He's the only one worried about me.
We still there, guys?
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
We're all here, man. We are all here. This rocks. One thing I'd like to go back on, Dan, when you were talking about how things get out of control with people wanting to use tables, chairs. Remember how in the mid-'90s, when ECW started becoming fashionable, suddenly not every indie wrestler, but there was always a few people on the shows who just wanted to, turn the match into a hardcore match, even though that's not what they were asked to do. And what I loved is one of the guys that you would go to for incidents like that was Craze, and you would say, okay, Rob, if somebody, I like the way you put it, Dan, if somebody wants to go bingo hall on us tonight and decides to use furniture from the establishment we're wrestling in, stop them. And there was at least one occasion where one of the wrestlers wanted to take the fight across into the bar, and Craze just grabbed the guy, put him in a headlock, and dragged him back.
Yeah, exactly. Craze was a great policeman. Craze has always been a great policeman. He's a guy who sits there, and to me, he says, I would rather be Bret Hart and wrestle on the mat than I would to do all this other stuff. And those are the kind of guys, wrestling needs a little bit of everybody. There's always going to be, if you look back, again, to those old carnival days and the athletic shows, you had the hookers who were the guys, who were the submission masters. You had the shooters that could really wrestle. And then you had the journeymen. And the journeymen were the entertainers. And, all wrestling groups need to be made up of that. And that's one of the things that, when Barry and all those guys talk about MPW, there'll be something that'll be kind of light and kind of funny. And there'll be something that maybe is a little more serious or whatever. Because you want to have that, When you go to see a movie or go to see a play or any kind of show, they build the ups and downs. Bruce Springsteen is not going to come out and open with Born to Run.
Right.
It's not the way you do it.
Yeah,
and that's what people have to think about when they do these shows.
That reminds me of something that I remember years ago. It was like when he was really, doing his sort of recovery tour. That Chris Candido did this long interview with Larry Goodman, and I think this was when he said it. He said something like, I've decided that I'd much rather be Doug Summers than Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. That's the best way to put it.
And also, like you're saying, Dan, a little bit of everything on a show. If you try to stuff too much into one show, it's like if you're making soup and you put nothing but chicken and vegetables and no broth to kind of lighten it up.
If you go through a buffet and all you pick up is like steak all the time, you're going to get, you got to throw some veggies or some other stuff in there, because if not, you're going to get bored too. And that's one of the biggest problems that happened with with hardcore wrestling, is the fact that people got bored of it pretty quick. Mainly not because they saw it done really well, but they saw it done really, really badly in many situations. And I think that, you look at it, did you ever think that you would see a day when ECW would have what's supposed to be, a reunion pay-per-view coming up this weekend that nobody gives a crap about? In most cases, nobody really does.
Nobody gives a crap, and hardly anybody even knows it exists.
It's like version 4.0 by this point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
We've seen it 1,000 times. And
old school.
Yeah, exactly. And nothing sadder than something that was. It's like watching somebody who was really hip and cool at one point, and they just hang on too long. And that's what ECW has done. They're hanging on way too long.
Yes.
And it was great. I mean, how many times can you see somebody go through a table during a show? If you do it every match, it kills it.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no mystique to it. Exactly. There's no mystique to it anymore. If it happens once every three shows, wow, he went through a table. It happens every show. Oh, he went through a table again.
And people need to remember that if you look at the way that Paul Heyman, again, there's a situation where Paul Heyman booked that show. There was hardcore wrestling, there was comedy on that show. But also, I always think that the backbone of ECW, the foundation that group was built on, were built on matches with Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, all those, Benoit, all those guys. Yeah, all those
Chris
guys.
Benoit.
I'd argue Scorpio more than anyone else, because he stuck around
who were good, solid technical wrestlers. And Paulie was wise enough. He said, okay, I'm going to bring in some lucha guys. I'm going to bring in some Japanese guys. I'm going to do a little bit of everything. ECW became this whole blanket thing for people being set on fire and thumbtacks, and that's not really what it was. And I think that's why Heyman was so smart to stay away. At least I hope he still is, staying away from this stuff, because of the fact that that's not his legacy, thumbtacks and burning tables. His legacy is everything else that he was able to put together. The stuff that you don't see is the stuff that worked the best.
And I think people forget, even though it had the moniker of being new and extreme, there was still good old-fashioned wrestling storytelling in it. That gets, I think, people.
But in reality, it wasn't really new. It was being done in Memphis 12, 13 years earlier.
And like you're saying, it had something for everybody. For me, my favorite thing about ECW was those amazing Tajiri versus Super Crazy matches that at the time were just mind-blowing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was great.
And they had, I like the one thing, though, is that they did that match so many times, though.
It's
and
true.
I guess this sort of goes to what you say, though, that the one that really sticks out and that everyone remembers is when they did do the hardcore style match, because it was the departure.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
That's true. It's a very good point.
And that's the whole idea. That's why we talk about all the time. Somebody says, oh, we're going to have a chain match on our show. Well, why? Why didn't you build a chain match and make it mean something?
Make it a reason. Make these guys just want to tear each other's throat out so there's a reason.
Yeah, it's kind of like when they do those shows that it's going to be an all steel cage show. Well, why?
Right.
Well, I can tell you why in the Mike LaBelle days. They didn't want to have to take the cage up and down again.
They didn't get the cage down. He was too lazy to get the cage down. Yeah, exactly. So that's why they used to sit there and do that great thing they used to do at the end of the year. Remember, Kurt? They would go, okay, every match this Friday night, is a loser leave town match. And you sit there and you go, okay, LaBelle's cleaning out the roster.
And the funniest thing is they would have loser leave town matches in every city that in each day of the week.
Yeah.
And there'd be different matches, but the same people would lose and leave town.
Memphis did that too.
Yeah, Memphis used to do those great title changes where they would change the tag title in every city that week.
Yeah.
WWE got smart. They just hook the cage to the ceiling, and now they just raise it up when they're done.
That may be the greatest invention in the history of wrestling. Was the idea of suspending the cage and bringing it up and down that way? Because I kept thinking, well, it's going to happen because they did with LA because they did all those loser leave town matches. That I was going to show up at the San Bernardino Arena one night and there'd be nobody there, and I would say, "What happened?" And he goes, "Everybody lost a loser leave town match. There's nobody left."
So Red Shoes Dugan and Hank Matheny would be crowned the World Tag Team Champions.
Yeah, exactly. Or Red Shoes would just go in there and just ref an imaginary match. That's all it was.
I'll never forget that final year of Michael Bell's promotion. We were at the match with Dr. Jerry Graham, and there were a couple of good wrestlers, but a lot of really lame wrestlers. And halfway through the show, Dr. Jerry Graham just shakes his head and says, "My God, Red Shoes Dugan is in better shape than any of the wrestlers."
He always was.
And he was right.
He always was.
It wasn't a joke. He really was.
He was no Bronco Lubitsch.
Yeah, oh, God. Bronco Lubitsch is still trying to stand up from one of his 3 counts at one point. That guy would take an hour and a half to get down and an hour and a half to get back up again. It was awful. Dugan would fly all over the place, and it was really funny because he had been a ref so long that, if you were close enough to hear him, he wouldn't even bother talking anymore. He would go, that's it.
Yeah, I was always wondering what he was saying, and my friend Tom Hankins wrestled a match, and he said Dugan was right in his face, just going,
yeah, exactly.
So it's like his own version of Jerry Lawler's Invisible Foreign Object.
Yeah, that's right. He was speaking his own version of Carney. That's what it was.
Yeah, Red Shoes Dugan, that is my all-time personal favorite referee. He's one of those referees everybody remembers, but he didn't have to do an angle or anything like that to get over. He was just Red Shoes Dugan. He was awesome.
Well, he did that great little leap when he would do the 3 count. He would jump up in the air kind of like
he would jump over the wrestlers sometimes.
That always amazed me because when I was refereeing, I thought about doing that once or twice, but I thought, all I need to do is get clumsy and fall on him one time. And that'll be the end of that, that whole thing.
I think that happened at a couple MPW shows with like Aaron Hassan. I mean, people
Aaron Hassan would be, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've we tried to get him for the reunion show, and I didn't hear anything. Because I was watching these old tapes, because Paul gave me the tapes, and I edited them for YouTube, and the entire matches, people are just yelling out, Super Mario, Adam.
That's what he looked like, yeah.
Yeah, I always get a hold of him. I liked Aaron.
Yeah. He always got beat up, though.
He did.
We went to that show he promoted. Remember, Kurt?
I remember that, the Torrance at the Boys Club. Not the Boys Club, the Elks Lodge.
Wow. Oh, I didn't know he promoted a show.
Yeah.
He promoted 2 shows. It was an Elks Lodge. It was the most surreal experience. Going to this Elks Lodge was like going back in time.
Mm-hmm.
You saw guys who were wearing like heavy coats like they were going camping, even though it was summertime in Southern California. And you saw Boy Scouts there. And when I say Boy Scouts, I'm talking about Boy Scouts in uniform in the audience. It's like you're waiting for Potsy and Ralph Mouth to come out somewhere,
At least book the Girl Scouts to help sell concessions.
And so, Hal, did you guys ever work with Josh Milton, the referee from WoW?
No, never did.
No.
Okay. Did any of you ever watch when WoW their TV that they did from the forum? Okay, he was the referee who took the ridiculously psychotic bumps.
Oh yes. Okay, I know you're referring to now.
Like I remember, the one I remember most is that I think it was probably Peggy Lee Leather, or maybe one of the women in prison gimmick girls do it. Did the thing where you sort of grab him by the hair and you throw him over the top rope, go running and throw him over the top rope?
Yeah.
He just goes flying over the top high over the top rope and lands directly on his neck like he's taking a Tiger Driver 91.
Oh man. Ouch.
And then when they did their pay-per-view and they had a cage match like, as soon as it was announced, like, everyone realized, oh, okay, he's going to take a bump off the cage. And then of course, the match comes, and it's, probably the tallest cage I have ever seen on a wrestling show. And then he just starts sort of climbing the cage for no apparent reason to get away from the wrestlers. And guess what happens next?
Yeah.
Oh,
and we all know that people always pay good money to see a ref take a bump.
This is
but
true.
It's only a handful of hardcore fans that really care about that, you know. And meanwhile, this guy would be like, you know, he'd be 29 years old and in a wheelchair, going, yeah, but those 8 fans down front, they kept saying, you know, you're hardcore.
That will be your legacy, and 4 of those fans will remember you 3 years later.
Yeah.
Plus, he wasn't even doing it for a promotion that had a hardcore fan following. It was wow.
You know, we're talking about cage matches earlier.
McLean.
Now we're talking about
like a good idea at the time. Yeah.
We're talking about cage matches earlier. Now, Dan, one thing that did make sense to me in LaBelle territory.
Yeah.
To win a cage match, you had to pin the wrestler or make him submit, and then you had to climb over the cage and touch the floor.
I always thought that would be a good idea. I didn't know they did that in L.A.
Ever since the early days of L.A. when they had cage matches, that was what you had to do in a cage match. And then the first time I ever saw a WWF cage match, I was puzzled. I'm saying, okay, the person who runs away the best, who can escape, the guy who's the biggest pussy can get out of there fast as he can and run back to the dressing room win.
Well, that was always the confusing part, because the WWF cage matches, it was the first guy to climb out, so that way the guy didn't have to do the job. But then in WCW, they would have the cage match, and they sometimes wouldn't even scale the cage; they just pin the guy in the cage. So I always thought the LaBelles did it the best.
I did too. I thought, you know, they overdid it toward the end of the promotion, but when they would have, like, Victor Rivera and Black Gordman in the cage matches, it'd be a great climax where Rivera would pin Gordman, and then Goliath would try to keep him from going over the cage, and Rivera would throw him back into the ring.
Yeah.
I mean, with the WWF cage matches, though, I will say this, though, that I do think that at least from, like, the ones I've seen with Bruno, I do think he did a good job getting that version of it over, the whole I've beaten him up enough.
Well,
and
that's
I'm
what
so honorable that I'm going to walk out.
Bruno was the exception when you come to that, because the deal with Bruno was he would just beat the guy to the point where the guy is laying on a heap in the ground, and Bruno very rarely would cover over. He'd just go to the door and ask the guy to open the door, then he'd walk out.
He just calmly walks away because he's Bruno and he's honorable and he's not.
Yeah, exactly.
He's proven his point. Blah blah blah.
Exactly. It's just a lot of those other ones, and you know, as Curtis, you remember the cage of the Olympic was a different thing altogether. It was like made out of wood and chicken wire, so it was a whole different.
It was like
it looked almost like a giant shark cage in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It wasn't even a full metal cage then?
No, it wasn't. It was mostly a wooden frame with. They had a Freddie. They called it the Freddie Blassie cage.
Yes,
and that was kept mostly in San Bernardino, and that was your basic iron cage. It wasn't real tall. I would say probably.
Yeah, they used that for some of the Olympic matches on occasion.
On occasion, but it was gray and it had a lot of big slats so you could see through it. But I would say probably it was only, what would you think, Kurt? Maybe 20, 30 feet tall or something. It wasn't.
It wasn't. It wasn't that big.
You could climb out pretty quick.
Yeah. Right.
20, 30 feet tall, only 20, 30 feet tall. You're thinking in like more than exaggerated wrestling terms.
Yeah, I mean, it was literally a guy could climb out of that cage like in 3 to 4 steps. Okay. That's all it took to do. But it had a flat top, so you could sit on top and hit each other. And for the longest time, they had in the opening credits for the local wrestling. They had, was it Goliath and Rivera, or was it Black Gordman and Rivera?
It was Goliath and Rivera. Black Gordman was laying in the ring, and Goliath was trying to keep Rivera from getting over the cage.
And they were just sitting on top punching each other back and forth. And that was one of those things you always remember from the opening credits.
And finally, Rivera punches him, and Goliath falls into the ring, and that was back in the days when nobody saw bumps like that.
Yeah,
so
and he swallowed his gum. He swallowed his gum, too.
Oh. For those of you unfamiliar with Gordon and Goliath always chewed gum when he was wrestling.
It was very cool when he did it, though. It was
very cool. It made him look like a badass, like he didn't care. Just like,
and when they would show up, and when Goliath was very cool, because Goliath very rarely ever spoke. He would speak oftentimes with the Spanish interviews, but he would never speak. Gorman would always do all the talking, or their manager, or whoever it was. But when they came out in their street clothes, Goliath looked like somebody's Tio. It looked like somebody's Spanish grandfather. He would come out wearing a little hat and a little nice sport coat or whatever, and he just but he would be chewing that gum at all times. He never missed a beat. Never missed a beat.
Yes, and actually in real life he was like somebody's Tio. He was where Gordman loved to go out, cat dancing and partying. Apparently Goliath just went straight home, wanted to be with the fam.
But he's one of those guys too that over the years, and he wrestled pretty much. He stayed here. He was a local guy here, and how long has he been gone now, Kurt?
1994. He died. Not 1994. 2004. He died. He died the same month Stefan De Leon passed away.
That's right. But he worked well up until the mid '90s before he quit, right?
Yeah, had a lot of respect from all the local boys here.
And that was the thing about it this was a guy. I don't think I ever said hello to him or spoke to him or whatever when I would see him around, but I would. It was one of the kind of things you do is you would nod to him and he would nod back because I felt such intimidation. I mean, he wasn't that way, but he was a very intimidating guy. He really was.
I saw him several times before I actually started talking with him. What loosened me up is whenever there was a rookie around my age, they would go up and introduce him saying, "Oh my God, I used to watch you, sir, when you were a little kid." And he'd break out into this big grin. Everybody says that I feel really old.
He and Gorman could lay in some chops. They could lay in some good chops, those guys did.
Oh yeah. No, Gordman and Goliath were the real thing. And Goliath had a rep as a good shooter here. And very stand-up guy, very fair guy, from what I've heard. Trained a lot of good wrestlers out here, too.
And it's always great because he and Gorman, what they would do is they would get hit really bad and they would start cursing in Spanish in the middle of the ring. It was always so funny.
And
even
the only time Goliath would speak in English was when fans were cursing at him in Spanish, and he would say in very broken English, "Shut up, Mexican."
Then that could start a chant.
They were one of the few teams I remember when I went to the Olympic when I was a kid. They were one of the few teams where people actually would throw stuff into the ring.
Oh, yeah.
Like, things that usually were kind of hyped up or days of yore, all that kind of stuff. But, yeah, people really did throw garbage at Gordman and Goliath.
And if you were in the Olympic, sometimes it would be a cup full of pee.
Yes, a cup full of pee or dirty diaper.
There was something about that in the New Observer. In the New Observer, talking about AAA, about how the heels love getting cups of pee thrown at them.
Yeah.
Because it shows that they're really getting heat.
I'll never forget it, one of those AAA shows in '93, both Art Barr and Eddie Guerrero came in cursing and screaming because fans were throwing their salsa and nachos all over him, and the jalapenos got in their eyes.
I think of all the things people, I mean, we've heard stories, I remember there's supposed to be a famous story of someone that threw like an entire chair and ripped out of the upper deck and hit Kangaroo Al Costello with it one time, or you hear all these stories, but you got to think about it. How dedicated of a fan do you have to be to get so mad that you finish drinking your beer, stop, take the time to pee in a cup, and throw it at somebody.
And hold on to it.
The funniest thing that I actually witnessed was in '84 when WWF was running at the Olympic Auditorium, and Don Morocco and Tito Santana were having a Texas death match. And a fan throws a full cup of soda into the ring, and I kid you not, it landed right in Morocco's hands. And when I say it landed in his hands, the full cup, barely any spilled out. And he looked like as surprised as anybody else that he caught it. And he smiled toward the fans' way, gave the fans a thumb up, dashed, and then ground the cup into Tito Santana's face.
Yeah.
It was classic.
Here's a question for you then. With all of your collective years in the indie scene in California, have you ever actually seen someone in a battle royal take a bump for a soda cup?
No, I've never seen that.
No.
Because it's become an urban legend that you hear all these wrestlers tell to the point where I'm guessing it probably never actually happened.
No, I don't think it. I mean, I've heard stories where I've seen, there was that situation actually going to the Figure 4 board where Vinny took a bump in a battle royal for an Easter egg recently. But in general, most of the time, you'll see big. They had a situation in here. A group called AWS folded, and they had a 3-ring battle royal with 150 guys.
Yeah.
At least they figured that's what it was. You were there, weren't you, Barry? Did you go to that one?
No, I was supposed to go, but I know like Larry Park was there, and Red and Logan were in it, and
there's a bunch of weird stories where the guys were in there, and one of the rings actually broke, and they still continued to work in it. But there were stories that the introductions took 45 minutes to bring everybody in, which was probably longer than the battle royal. But they said some people who were fans actually jumped the rail and jumped into the ring and were in there.
The battle royal.
I heard that too, yeah.
I think what had been really funny is they had this, after 45 minutes introductions, they ring the bell, and everybody threw each other out all at the same time, and there was one guy left in there after 30 seconds.
And he was unconscious.
Everybody did the clothesline over the top rope and kept going, and there was nobody left at that point.
No, I think Sam DeSero in Windy City did like a 3-ring 120-guy battle royal where fans could enter, but they had to pay an entry fee.
Jeez.
I would not want to draft that waiver, I'm telling you.
No, that's crazy. That's almost as crazy as those guys that have those shows where fans bring weapons to give to people. Or do you remember that one? We did one, John, when I was doing Hollywood heavyweight wrestling. Johnny Legend did a thing where he had fans act as lumberjacks, which is the first time I had heard of that, and they've done that since then. But to me, again, that was, even then I was, that's insane. That's
not well thought out. It makes for good ambience, but not a good idea.
No.
Well, Dan, remember that show you were reffing in Pomona where a fan handed me a telephone to use as a foreign object? But instead of hitting the guy with it, I just answered the phone and took the call.
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, I hate to end the show here. I could go all night. I'm having a blast, but
I want to hear about Hawaii.
Hawaii was bitching. You know what? I'll talk about Hawaii on the next show. It was so bitching. I'm still half there, like I said. I'm still sunburning on the beach, swimming in the ocean with sea turtles. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I could talk about that forever, I could tell you.
Now, did you end up listening to any of the King Curtis stuff I sent you while you were in Hawaii?
No, but you did see the T-shirt I got, right?
Yeah, 50th State Wrestling.
I
was surprised by that.
That was just amazing. I was surprised too.
Shirt.
I wasn't even looking for it.
We saw that in person on Saturday, Bix. It was it's amazing, even better in person than it was on the picture he took of it.
Well, Barry, I want to thank you very much for making your debut appearance here on Slammin' Stan.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here, and I'll see you next week.
Yes, definitely, and we hope to have you back on the show sometime soon. And Fredo, thank you as always for driving the boat here. And the Bixie Demon, of course, always awesome to have you on.
Fredo, did you go down the street and get a frappe from McDonald's and come back during the show?
I already had dinner just right now. Up right now.
He's actually calling from Coco, sitting at the restaurant.
Yeah.
That's right, yes. And Shoot Fighter Dan Farren, God bless you, thank you, and look forward to having you back on here in a few weeks.
Oh, it's good.
Remember, everybody, whenever you're walking through Southern California in the evening and you see a bright light streaking through the sky, it is not a shooting star. No, it is a heavenly handful of Moncel's powder. See you in 2 weeks, my babies.
Shalom.